My name is Celine Whitmore. I am 26 years old, and I reside in a modest apartment in the heart of the city. I surveyed the backyard carefully. Approximately 100 family members were positioned on the meticulously trimmed lawn. Each one clutched a champagne flute and beamed in my direction. It was the day I was born. I assumed they had gathered to honor me. I was mistaken. They had assembled to witness my downfall. My father, Garrison, stood at the forefront of the crowd. He beckoned me forward with a grin that never touched his gaze. He placed a thick leather binder in my hands. It appeared costly. I believed it was a present. My fingers trembled as I unfolded it. Within lay a solitary document. It was a detailed bill. The sum totaled $248,000. The notation stated, "For lodging, sustenance, and disruption." My insides churned. The quiet that blanketed the yard was suffocating. Before I could utter a sound, my sister Waverly advanced toward me. She extended her palm. "Hand over the vehicle keys, Celine. That automobile no longer belongs to you." Then the most devastating moment arrived. My supervisor, who had been invited as a guest, cleared his voice. He stared at the ground and informed me that my position was terminated. He explained that a reference from my parents had altered everything. I remained motionless, gripping the receipt for my own existence. I understood then that this gathering was not a celebration. It was an elimination. But before I reveal how everything transformed, make sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment below. Where in the world are you tuning in from? My name is Celine Whitmore. I am 26 years old. I pivoted away from them. I offered no farewell. I did not raise my voice. I simply rotated and began my departure. The pathway leading out was extensive. It was bordered by luxury vehicles. My automobile sat among them, the one Waverly had just confiscated the keys for. I passed by it without a glance. I refused to acknowledge it. I sensed their stares boring into my spine. I perceived the intensity of their scrutiny. I recognized they anticipated my collapse. They yearned for me to spin around and plead. They craved my tears and requests for transportation. I denied them that pleasure. I exited through the wrought iron barriers of the property. The massive metal clanged behind me. That reverberation was conclusive. It resonated like a cell door swinging open, not sealing shut. I was on the outside. They remained within. My residence was 3 miles distant. I was wearing stilettos. They were beige pumps, luxurious and constricting. They were footwear designed for seated dinners, not for traversing pavement. I initiated my first stride onto the primary thoroughfare. The sun was descending. The heavens displayed a blend of amber and violet, but I paid no attention to the panorama. I concentrated solely on advancing one step after another. The initial mile passed in complete numbness. My thoughts were vacant. It resembled interference on a television display. I continuously replayed the scene from the yard. My father's artificial smile, the heft of the leather binder against my palms, Waverly's covetous fingers reaching for my keys, my supervisor examining his footwear. By the second mile, the corporeal agony commenced. My heels abraded the rear of my ankles. I perceived the skin tearing. A blister emerged and subsequently burst. The sensation was piercing. It jolted me awake. I halted momentarily and gazed downward. A crimson spot had appeared on the back of my shoe. I removed the footwear. I carried them in my grasp. I proceeded barefoot along the sidewalk. The cement was coarse and retained warmth from the daylight hours. It scratched against the bottoms of my feet. The discomfort was beneficial. It was tangible. The anguish within my heart was too immense to process yet, but the suffering in my feet was uncomplicated. It anchored me to reality. I continued forward. Automobiles rushed past me. Individuals peered through their windows. They observed a woman in an elegant dress walking shoeless along the roadside clutching a leather folder. They presumably considered me deranged. Perhaps I was. Or perhaps I was finally perceiving clearly for the very first time. I began to contemplate, this was not coincidental. This was not an argument that escalated beyond control. My parents had not merely lost their composure. One does not compose an itemized bill for $248,000 accidentally. One does not summon a supervisor to a gathering simply to dismiss an employee accidentally. This was orchestrated. They had convened and strategized this. They likely dined with Waverly and deliberated the details. They selected the date, my birthday. They chose the location, their yard. They handpicked the spectators, the extended family. It was a synchronized assault. It was a calculated ambush. For what reason? The inquiries spiraled through my consciousness. Why would they execute this? I had been an exemplary daughter. I achieved excellent marks. I secured a respectable position. I never requested their financial assistance. I was self-sufficient. And then comprehension struck me. That was precisely the issue. I was self-sufficient. I arrived at my apartment complex. My feet were filthy and lacerated. My limbs quivered. I ascended the stairwell because I wished to avoid encountering anyone in the elevator. I unfastened my entrance. My dwelling was compact. It was serene. It carried the scent of citrus cleaner and aged volumes. It belonged to me. I covered the rent. I acquired the furnishings. I released the leather binder onto the floor. It produced a dense thump. I did not proceed to the kitchen for water. I did not visit the bathroom to cleanse my feet. I advanced directly to my workstation. I seated myself and activated my laptop. The display illuminated blue. It provided the sole brightness in the space. I entered my credentials. My digits raced across the keyboard. I was not weeping. I was no longer trembling. I experienced coldness, a profound glacial chill within my chest. My father presumed himself intelligent. He was a commercial executive. He conducted negotiations and formal agreements. He believed authority meant currency and intimidation. He failed to comprehend my domain. I am a data specialist. I comprehend sequences. I comprehend figures. I comprehend how to unearth information that individuals prefer concealed. I activated a command interface. The dark rectangular space materialized on the display with a pulsing white indicator. It awaited my instruction. Very well, I vocalized to the vacant space. My voice emerged hoarse. You desire conflict? We shall engage in conflict. They presumed they had stripped everything from me. My vehicle, my occupation, my relatives. But they neglected one element. They forgot my identity. I was no longer merely their offspring. I was a danger, and I intended to combat them on my territory. I intended to employ information. I examined the binder on the floor. For an extended period, I left it untouched. It rested there like a deceased creature. Eventually, I bent down and retrieved it. The leather was sleek. It emanated the fragrance of my father's workspace. It smelled of wealth and vintage cologne. I unsealed it again. I extracted the singular sheet. It was printed on premium linen paper. The heading displayed my father's consulting enterprise emblem. That was an elegant touch. He wished to formalize it. Invoice directed to Celine from Garrison and Cordelia dated December 12th regarding reimbursement for services provided. I examined the enumeration again. Accommodation and meals spanning 18 years, $180,000. Apparel and necessities, $25,000. Healthcare expenditures, $15,000. Education and private schooling differential, $20,000. Inconvenience surcharge, $8,000. Sum owed, $248,000. I fixated on the figures. The zeros wavered before my vision. The inconvenience surcharge wounded most severely. $8,000 for the burden of bearing a child. Was that compensation for the evenings I wailed as an infant? Was that for the occasions I fell ill? I examined the accommodation line. I recalled my chamber. It was perpetually frigid. I was prohibited from affixing posters to the surfaces. I was forbidden from securing the door. It was not a bedroom. It was a containment area where they stored me. I examined the apparel entry. I remembered wearing Waverly's hand-me-downs. Waverly perpetually received the fresh coats, the new boots. I inherited whatever no longer suited her, regardless if it was oversized or an unflattering shade. And presently they were invoicing me for it. I positioned the document on my desk. I experienced nausea. But as I scrutinized it, the sickness transformed into something else. It metamorphosed into lucidity. This sheet of paper was not a statement. It was an admission. Ordinary parents do not maintain a running tally. Ordinary parents do not compute the expense of nappies and formula. When one brings a child into existence, one consents to nurturing them. That is the arrangement. One does not dispatch an invoice 18 years subsequently. But my parents were not ordinary. They were narcissists. To them, I was not a human being. I was a venture. I resembled a stock they had purchased. They invested capital and anticipated returns. They expected me to achieve fame or wealth, or marry an influential figure so they could boast about me. But I was none of those things. I was simply Celine. I labored in technology. I inhabited a modest apartment. I was reserved. I did not provide them with bragging privileges. So in their perception, the venture had failed. They demanded their capital back. It became coherent now. The manner in which my mother would exhale when I discussed my profession. Computing is so tedious, Celine, she would declare. Waverly is pursuing modeling now. That is stimulating. They despised my competence. They despised my independence. When I reached 20, I relocated. I maintained 2 positions to cover my own rent. I assumed they would express pride. I was incorrect. They were furious. They ceased inviting me to dinner for months. I did not understand the reason then. Now I did. They abhor autonomy. If I am autonomous, they cannot manipulate me. If I settle my own accounts, they cannot dictate my actions. If I operate my own vehicle, I can drive away from them. That is why they seized the automobile today. It was not about the vehicle. It was about mobility. They wished to ground me like an adolescent. That is why they arranged my dismissal. It was not about the position. It was about the income. Without earnings, I cannot afford rent. If I cannot afford rent, I must return to their residence. I examined the invoice again. They desire my return, I murmured. They did not wish to discard me. They wished to shatter me. They wished me to forfeit everything. My dwelling, my vocation, my dignity, so I would be compelled to crawl back to their estate. They wished me sleeping in my former frigid chamber, beseeching them for funds, relying on them for nourishment. They desired a servant. They desired a casualty. I sensed a blaze igniting in my abdomen. It incinerated the melancholy. They committed an error, a monumental error. They believed presenting me this invoice would intimidate me. They believed the obligation would devastate me. But it did not. It emancipated me. Because now I understood the parameters. This was not a familial bond. It was a commercial exchange. And if it was a commercial exchange, I could examine it. You wish to discuss finances? I addressed the document. Very well. Let us discuss finances. I returned to my computer. The indicator still pulsated, waiting. They had transmitted me a statement for $248,000. But they had overlooked something. I possessed access to information they were unaware of. I knew the location of the actual wealth, and I knew they were not as pristine as they portrayed. I was not going to settle this invoice. I was going to dispatch them one of my own. My telephone had been vibrating for 2 hours. It oscillated on the desk like an agitated insect. I viewed the display. Messages from cousins. Communications from acquaintances who had received the gossip. Alerts from social media. Is it accurate you were dismissed? Your father appears extremely upset. Observed Waverly's post. Are you well? I did not access them. I did not respond. Silence functions as a barrier. I remained behind my barrier. But I could not remain silent regarding my employment. That was the initial support they attempted to topple. I required an immediate remedy. My supervisor, the one who terminated me at the gathering, was a feeble individual. His name was Preston. Preston was intimidated by my father. My father was a substantial benefactor to the organization's charitable foundation. Preston likely assumed dismissing me would satisfy my father. Preston had no regard for employment regulations or equity. He was a coward. If I contacted Preston, he would not listen. He would stammer and fabricate excuses. I needed to escalate beyond his authority. I examined the clock. It displayed 9 in the evening. Late, but not excessively late for the executives at the summit. I searched my contacts for Marcus Ellison. Marcus served as the regional executive. He was positioned 3 tiers above Preston. 6 months prior, our organization experienced a substantial data compromise. It occurred on a Sunday. No one answered their communications. I was the sole person who detected the server behaving anomalously. I arrived. I halted the breach. I preserved the company millions of dollars in potential litigation. Marcus had contacted me personally to express gratitude. He provided me his private mobile number. "If you ever require anything, Celine," he had stated, "you contact me." I hoped he was sincere. My hands remained steady as I initiated the call. It chimed once, twice, 3 times. My heart pounded against my ribcage. What if he did not respond? What if he believed my parents as well? "This is Marcus." His voice was deep and weary. "Marcus, it is Celine from Data Analytics." There was a pause. "Celine, it is Sunday evening. Is everything acceptable? Is the server malfunctioning?" "The server is functioning properly," I stated. My voice was composed. I channeled that frigid sensation in my chest. "But I have a predicament. I was just terminated by Preston at a private gathering because of a personal disagreement with my parents." Marcus was silent for a moment. "Pardon me. You were dismissed when?" 2 hours ago. Preston was a guest at my parents' residence. My father is displeased with me for personal matters. He instructed Preston to dismiss me. Preston executed it before 100 witnesses. I kept it straightforward. Facts exclusively. No sentiment. I did not mention I walked home barefoot. I did not reference the invoice. I merely stated the professional violation. "That is highly irregular," Marcus remarked. His voice sounded more acute now. "And unlawful." "I understand," I responded. "I am among your leading analysts, Marcus. My performance evaluations are impeccable. I rescued the network 6 months ago. I am being penalized because my father is a donor. I am contacting you because I respect this organization. I do not wish to file a wrongful termination lawsuit. I simply wish to perform my duties." I held my breath. I had played the card. The lawsuit implication was subtle, but it was present. Marcus did not hesitate. "Grant me 10 minutes, Celine." "Very well. Disconnect. I will return your call." I placed the phone down. The room was silent again. 10 minutes. It felt like 10 years. I stared at the timepiece on the wall. The second hand advanced slowly. Tick, tick, tick. This was the examination. Was I powerless or was I valuable? My parents informed me I was nothing without them. They declared my success was attributable to their surname. "You are only employed because you are a Whitmore," my mother used to proclaim. I waited. 8 minutes later, my phone chimed. It was Marcus. "Celine, I have arrived." "I communicated with Preston," Marcus stated. His voice was rigid like granite. "He confirmed the account. He acknowledged he acted under duress from your father." "I understand." "Preston is no longer the manager of your division," Marcus continued. My eyes expanded. "The termination is nullified," Marcus proceeded. "It never transpired. You remain employed. Moreover, I am transferring you to the Senior Security Division. You will report directly to headquarters, not the local branch. Preston cannot affect you. Your parents cannot affect you." I released a breath I was unaware I had been retaining. "Thank you, Marcus." "And Celine?" "Yes? We are incorporating a retention bonus. 10% increase effective immediately. We do not appreciate external influence in our organization. I apologize for what occurred." "Thank you," I repeated. "I will see you on Monday." I disconnected. I reclined in my chair. I accomplished it. My parents had attempted to sever my income. They attempted to render me destitute so I would crawl back. Instead, I got their associate dismissed. I received a promotion, and I received a raise. For the initial time that evening, I smiled. It was not a joyful smile. It was a grim, taut smile. Strike one. They believed I was fragile. They believed I was the small girl who wept when she dropped her frozen treat. They did not know the woman I had developed into. They did not know that while they were engaging in social maneuvering, I was constructing a career founded on genuine ability. I examined the invoice again. $248,000. You desire finances? I contemplated. I just earned additional finances. But I was not finished. Reclaiming my employment was merely defensive. I needed to initiate an offensive. I returned to the command window on my display. It was time to investigate the family finances. I was secure for the moment. I possessed my employment. I possessed my salary. But that was insufficient. My parents had assaulted me. They had degraded me. And most significantly, they had presented me an invoice claiming I owed them currency. I needed to determine if that was accurate. My father, Garrison, was traditional. He maintained his passwords in a journal in his desk compartment. I knew this because I used to occupy myself in his office as a child, but I did not require the physical journal. 2 years prior, my father requested I configure his home wireless network and his new computer. You are proficient with machines. Repair it, he had barked at me. I repaired it. And while I was present, I established a back entrance. I did not do it to surveil him at that time. I did it because I knew he would forget his password and fault me. I desired a method to reset it remotely so he would not berate me. Now that back entrance was my instrument. I entered the command. Connecting to host. Access authorized. I was inside his computer. It was excessively simple. He lacked two-factor verification. He lacked sophisticated security measures. He was arrogant. He believed no one would dare interfere with him. I navigated through his directories. My documents, finances, tax filings. I began accessing files. I felt like an investigator in a film, but there was no soundtrack, just the hum of my laptop ventilation. I examined the bank records first. My parents were affluent, but they were not as wealthy as they pretended to be. They spent lavishly. Country club dues, lease payments for vehicles, jewelry. They were hemorrhaging cash to appear important. Then I discovered the folder labeled Trusts. My heart skipped a rhythm. My grandmother, my mother's mother, had passed away 5 years ago. She cherished me. She was the only one who genuinely cherished me. She used to secretly give me treats when my mother placed me on a restricted diet. She used to read to me. When she died, there was a testament. My parents told me she bequeathed everything to them to administer for the family. I was 21 then. I believed them. I did not inquire further. I was mourning. I accessed the file. Grandmother Estelle estate distribution document. I read the legal text. My eyes scanned the pages. I hereby bequeath the sum of $500,000 to my granddaughter Celine. I ceased breathing. $500,000. She had designated me $500,000, specifically to me, not to the family, to Celine, to be held in trust until she reaches the age of 21. I was 26. Where was the money? I started excavating deeper. I searched for the account number listed in the testament. I traced the transfers. The money had been deposited into a separate account 5 years ago. Then the withdrawals commenced. Withdrawal $50,000 transferred to Garrison and Cordelia joint checking. Withdrawal $85,000 purchase, luxury automobile dealership. I froze. The luxury car. The one Waverly operated. The one she boasted about. Father purchased it for me because I am his favorite, she had declared. He did not purchase it. I purchased it. My grandmother's money. My money funded Waverly's vehicle. I felt like I would regurgitate. The betrayal was physical. It contorted my stomach. It was not simply that they were cruel. It was not simply that they disregarded me. They were criminals. I continued searching. Withdrawal $20,000. Renovation contractor. That was for the new culinary space I was not permitted to use. Withdrawal $10,000. Vacation? Paris. The excursion they took without me. They had depleted it. All of it. The balance in the trust account was $4,512. They stole $500,000 from their own offspring. They spent my inheritance on themselves and on Waverly. And then today, they presented me a bill for $248,000. The audacity was astounding. It was malevolent. I sat back, trembling. Tears finally arrived. Heated, furious tears. I wiped them away roughly. Grandmother Estelle wanted me to be protected. She wanted me to have a foundation in life. She knew my parents. She knew they would not assist me. That money was her safeguard. And they seized it. They seized her affection and transformed it into sports automobiles and vacations. I looked at the display. I had the evidence. I had the bank records. I had the digital authorizations. My father's authorization. My mother's authorization. This was not merely a family dispute anymore. This was a criminal offense. This was embezzlement. This was fraud. I saved every file. I made duplicates. I backed them up to a remote server they could not access. I had come home feeling like a casualty. I felt diminished and erased. But now I was the most perilous person in their lives. I was not just going to defend myself. I was going to reclaim what was rightfully mine. But I observed something else in the records. Something peculiar. There were monthly transfers going out to an account I did not recognize. $5,000 every month. The recipient was WS Lifestyle LLC. I checked the incorporation documents for that LLC. The owner was Waverly Scarlett, my sister. Wait. My parents said Waverly was discovering herself. They said she was working on her modeling career. But the bank records showed regular scheduled payments from my parents' business account to Waverly's shell company. And looking closer, the authorization for these transfers came from Waverly's user ID. She was not just receiving an allowance. She had access. I leaned closer to the screen. Waverly was not just the pampered golden child. She was a collaborator. I needed to see more. I needed to see exactly what my little sister was doing. I typed in a new command. I was going deeper. I sat in the darkness. The glow of the computer screen was the only illumination. My eyes were fatigued, but my brain was fully alert. I had found the stolen trust fund. That was the first offense. But the log showed me something else. Something active. I was looking at the transfers to WS Lifestyle LLC. $5,000 every single month. I needed to know where that money was originating. My parents complained about finances constantly. They said the market was unfavorable. They said taxes were excessive. So where did they find an extra $60,000 a year to send to a shell company? I traced the deposits into my parents' business account. I saw a pattern. Every month on the first day, a wire transfer came in from Dashiell and Rosalind Whitmore. Amount $5,000. Memo: Investment Fund Technology Startups. Uncle Dashiell and Aunt Rosalind. My heart sank. Uncle Dashiell was my father's younger brother. He was a kind man. He was not astute with money, but he was good. He worked as a contractor. He constructed homes. He labored with his hands. Aunt Rosalind was an educator. They did not have millions. They saved every cent. I remembered a family cookout last summer. Uncle Dashiell was drinking a beverage. He looked content. He told me, "Your father is brilliant, Celine. He is helping us invest our retirement savings. We are going to be able to retire early. He is putting it into these new technology companies." I felt nauseated. I looked at the bank logs again. The money came in from Dashiell and Rosalind on the 1st. It stayed in my father's business account for 24 hours. Then on the 2nd, a transfer went out to WS Lifestyle LLC. Amount $5,000. There were no technology startups. There were no investments. My father was taking his own brother's retirement money. He was washing it through his business account. And then he was sending it to Waverly. I typed in the search command for WS Lifestyle LLC. I needed to see the spending. If this was a legitimate company, there should be business expenses. Office space, rent, equipment, payroll. I cracked the password for the LLC's bank portal. It was Waverly 123. She was so careless. I opened the statements. Debit cosmetics store, $450. Debit airline first class, $1,200. Debit luxury hotel, $3,000. Debit designer boutique, $800. It was not a business. It was a personal spending account. Uncle Dashiell was perspiring on construction sites, carrying lumber, damaging his back. Aunt Rosalind was grading papers until midnight. They were sending that money to my father, trusting him to build their future. And my father was giving it to Waverly to buy handbags. I felt a rage so intense it made my fingers tingle. This was worse than what they did to me. Stealing from me was one thing. I was young. I could work. I could recover. But Dashiell and Rosalind, they were in their 50s. This was their life savings. But I needed to be certain about Waverly. Maybe she did not know. Maybe my father just gave her a credit card. Maybe she thought it was his money. I looked at the authorization logs for the transfers. In banking, when you move money from a business account, you need a digital signature. I pulled up the log for last month's transfer. User ID, W. Whitmore 2. IP address, the house device, Waverly's MacBook Pro. Action, authorized transfer. She knew. She was not just receiving the money. She was logging into the system. She was initiating the transfer from the business account to her LLC. She saw the source of the funds. The line item said Dashiell incoming. She clicked approve. I sat back. I thought about Waverly at the gathering today. She looked so flawless. Her hair was lustrous. Her dress cost more than my rent. She had demanded my car keys with a smirk. "It is not yours anymore," she had stated. She played the part of the innocent, spoiled daughter perfectly. Everyone thought she was just dim. Everyone thought she was just a pretty face who liked shopping. But she was not. She was a criminal. She was committing wire fraud. She was conspiring with my father to embezzle money from our relatives. She was looking at her uncle, the man who gave her birthday cards, the man who taught her how to ride a bicycle. And she was stealing his future to buy expensive cosmetics. She was worse than my parents. My parents were narcissists, yes. But Waverly, she was a sociopath. She felt nothing. I looked at the screen. I had everything. I had the chain of evidence, the trust fund theft, theft from me, the investment fraud, theft from Dashiell and Rosalind, the shell company, money laundering, the tax evasion. They definitely were not declaring this as income. I looked at the clock. It was 3 a.m. I had not slept. I had not eaten. My feet were still throbbing from the walk. But I felt awake. I felt powerful. They wanted to erase me. They wanted to make me zero. Instead, they had given me the keys to their destruction. I remember the invoice they gave me. $248,000. I opened a calculator. My grandmother's trust. $500,000. Interest over 5 years conservatively. $100,000. Uncle Dashiell's stolen money over 4 years. $240,000. My car, which they took. $35,000. Total stolen. $875,000. And they had the nerve to ask me for money. I laughed. It was a short, sharp sound in the quiet room. I was not going to sue them. Lawsuits take years. Lawyers are expensive. My parents would drag it out. They would lie. They would charm the judge. No, I was not going to court. I was going to the family. My parents cared about one thing above all else: their image. They cared about what people thought. They cared about being the perfect family at the country club. They cared about being the rich, successful benefactors. If I sued them, they could spin it. They could say I was a crazy, ungrateful daughter. But if I showed the truth, if I showed the numbers do not lie. I started to organize the files. I created a new folder on my desktop. I named it The Truth. I dragged the PDF of the testament into it. I dragged the bank statements into it. I dragged the logs of Waverly's shopping sprees into it. I dragged the email records into it. I was building a bomb. A digital bomb. I thought about Waverly again. I wondered if she was sleeping soundly in her silk sheets. I wondered if she was dreaming about her next vacation. She had no idea that her life was about to end. She thought she was the main character. She thought I was just an extra. She was wrong. I clicked on the file for WS Lifestyle LLC one last time. I took a screenshot of the approved button with her username next to it. Got you. I whispered. I was ready for the next step. The sun was coming up. The sky outside my window was gray and overcast. It looked like it was going to rain. It was fitting. I had the folder. Now I needed to package it. I opened a document editor. I did not want to just send a bunch of loose files. People get confused by loose files. I wanted this to be a story they could not stop reading. I created a single PDF document. Page 1, the cover page. I typed the title in big bold letters. Family Audit, a financial review. Page 2, the introduction. I kept it simple. Yesterday I was given an invoice for $248,000 for the cost of raising me. This prompted me to review the family finances to ensure all debts are settled. Below is the result of that review. Page 3, the Grandmother Estelle Trust. I put the scan of the testament on the left. I highlighted the section about the $500,000. On the right, I put the bank transfer showing the money leaving the account. I added a red arrow pointing to the purchase at the automobile dealership. Caption: the money left for Celine's education was used to purchase Garrison's business assets. Page 4, the car. I put the receipt for the luxury vehicle Waverly drove. Caption: purchased with funds from the Celine Whitmore Trust. Page 5, the Dashiell and Rosalind investment. This was the hardest page to make. I put the incoming transfer from Dashiell, then the outgoing transfer to Waverly. I put them side by side. Caption: Uncle Dashiell's retirement savings are not invested in technology. They are transferred directly to Waverly Scarlett for personal use. Page 6, Waverly's spending. I listed the purchases: designer boutique, luxury hotel, cosmetics store. Caption: how your investment money is actually spent. Page 7, the conclusion. I wrote a summary. Total stolen from Celine, $600,000 plus. Total stolen from Dashiell and Rosalind, $240,000 plus. Total due to family, $840,000 plus. My debt of $248,000 is considered paid in full. I saved the file. Family Audit PDF. It was 20 pages long. It was cold. It was factual. It was devastating. I opened my email client. I typed in the recipients. To Garrison Whitmore, father. Cordelia Whitmore, mother. CC, Waverly Scarlett. CC, Dashiell Whitmore, uncle. Rosalind Whitmore, aunt. CC, Grandmother Estelle's estate lawyer. CC, the board of directors at father's consulting firm. I hesitated on the last one. The board of directors. That would destroy his career. That would end his professional life. I looked at the invoice on my desk again. Inconvenience fee. I added the board of directors. I did not write a message in the body of the email. I did not write, I hate you or how could you. Anything I wrote would just look emotional. It would give them something to attack. Oh, Celine is just hysterical, they would say. Silence is harder to argue with. I attached the file. The progress bar moved across the screen. Blue, steady. I felt a moment of fear. Once I sent this, there was no going back. The family was over. Gatherings were over. Holidays were over. I would be an orphan effectively. But then I realized I was already an orphan. They orphaned me yesterday in the garden. They orphaned me when they stole my grandmother's money. They orphaned me when they decided I was a balance sheet item, not a human being. This was not an attack. It was an autopsy. The body was already dead. I was just showing everyone how it died. I moved the mouse to the send button. My finger hovered over the mouse. I took a deep breath. I smelled the stale air of my apartment. I felt the ache in my feet. I felt the hunger in my stomach. Goodbye, I said. I clicked. Message sent. I closed the laptop. I did not wait to see if they read it. I knew they would. I stood up. My legs were stiff. I walked to the kitchen and poured a glass of water. I drank it in one long gulp. Then I went to my front door. I engaged the deadbolt. I engaged the chain lock. I wedged a heavy chair under the handle. I knew what was coming next. The silence was the weapon, but the explosion was coming. I sat on my couch. I wrapped a blanket around myself. I waited. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. Then my phone lit up. Incoming call. Father. I watched it ring. I did not touch it. Incoming call. Father. Incoming call. Mother. Incoming call. Waverly. The phone buzzed and buzzed. It danced across the coffee table. Then the text messages started. Father. Selena, pick up the phone. Father. What did you send? Mother. Are you insane? You sent that to the board? Waverly. Delete it. Delete it right now. You are ruining everything. I watched the messages scroll by. They were panicking. They were not sorry. They were scared. Then a different text came through. Uncle Dashiell. Celine. Is this true? I picked up the phone. I typed one word. Yes. I put the phone back down. The war had started. But for the first time in my life, I was not the one running for cover. I was the one watching the fire. The noise did not stop. For 3 hours, my phone vibrated constantly. It was like a living thing in the room. My father left voicemails. I listened to one of them. Celine, you need to recall that email right now. Tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you were hacked. If you do not, I will. I will ruin you. Do you hear me? I will sue you for slander. His voice was shaking. He was not angry. He was terrified. He knew that the bank logs did not lie. He knew he could not sue for slander if it was the truth. Then my mother called. Her voicemail was different. She was crying. Celine, sweetheart, please. We can talk about this. We can fix this. We did not mean to hurt you yesterday. We were just stressed. Please, honey. Think about the family. Think about your sister. I deleted it. Think about your sister. That was always the line. I had to set myself on fire so Waverly could stay warm. Not anymore. Then the doorbell rang. It was not a polite ring. It was a pounding fist on wood. Selene, open this door. It was my father. I sat on the couch. I did not move. Selene, I know you are in there. Open the goddamn door. He kicked the door. The frame rattled. The chair I had wedged under the handle held firm. I stood up slowly. I walked to the door. I did not open it. I stood on the other side. Go away, I said. My voice was calm. It surprised me how steady it was. Open the door, he screamed. Do you have any idea what you have done? The board called me. They are suspending me pending an investigation. Dashiell is on his way over to my house with a lawyer. You have destroyed this family. I did not destroy it, I said through the wood. I just turned on the lights. You ungrateful little brat. After everything we gave you. You gave me a bill, I said. Remember? $248,000. I just paid it. He went silent. I could hear him breathing heavily on the other side of the door. Celine, he said, his voice dropping to a desperate whisper. Please, just send an email saying it was a joke. I will give you the money. I will give you the $500,000. I will buy you a car. Just fix it. He was trying to bribe me. He still thought everything was a transaction. He did not understand that some things could not be bought. I looked down at the floor. I had printed something out before he arrived. It was a single sheet of paper. It was a printout from the Department of Justice website. Federal Sentencing Guidelines for Wire Fraud and Embezzlement. I slid the paper under the door. It made a soft scraping sound. What is this? He asked. I heard paper rustling. Read it, I said. Silence. Long silence. You taught me to calculate costs, Father, I said. You wanted me to know the value of things. So I looked it up. That is the cost of fraud. That is the cost of stealing from your family. You would send your own father to jail? I did not send you there, I said. You drove yourself there in Waverly's car. Celine. Go home, Garrison, I said. I did not call him father. Go home and talk to your lawyer. You are going to need him. I heard a sound I had never heard before. It was a sob. My father, the strong, arrogant tyrant, was crying in the hallway of my cheap apartment building. Please, he moaned. Leave, I said. Or I call the police and show them the files too. It was a bluff. I had already decided I would not go to the police unless I had to. The family knowing was enough, but he did not know that. I heard him shuffle away. His footsteps were heavy and slow. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door. I was shaking now. The adrenaline was leaving my body, leaving me weak. My phone buzzed again. It was a text from Uncle Dashiell. Dashiell, I'm at the bank. The manager confirmed it. The money is gone. Thank you, Celine. You did not destroy the family. You exposed a crime. I'm sorry we did not see it sooner. Come over whenever you are ready. You always have a home with us. I stared at the screen. Tears blurred my vision. You did not destroy the family. That was the fear. That was the guilt I had been carrying. I thought I was the villain. I thought I was the one breaking things. But Dashiell saw the truth. I walked back to the window. I looked down at the street. I saw my father's car pulling away. It swerved a little, like a drunk driver. He was gone. The panic was happening in their house now. The yelling, the blaming. Waverly screaming because her credit cards were getting declined. My mother crying because her social standing was vaporizing. But in my apartment, it was quiet. It was the first time in 26 years that I felt safe. The fall did not happen all at once. It happened in agonizing slow motion. Over the next 3 weeks, I watched it from a distance. I did not go to the house. I did not answer their calls. I got my updates from Uncle Dashiell and, surprisingly, from the news. First, it was the job. 2 days after my email, my father was formally fired by the board. The character references he had used to get me fired came back to haunt him. The board did not want a CEO who stole from his own relatives. It was a liability. Then came the lawsuits. Uncle Dashiell did not want to sue, but he had to. He had to recover his retirement money. He filed a civil suit against my father and against the WS Lifestyle LLC. Because of the lawsuit, the assets were frozen. The court ordered a seizure of property to pay for restitution. I walked past the house one day, about 2 weeks later. I stayed on the other side of the street. There were moving trucks in the driveway, but they were not luxury movers. They were court-appointed liquidation teams. I saw men carrying out the furniture, the antique dining table where I was not allowed to speak, the expensive sofas, the art from the walls. It was all being tagged and loaded. It was just stuff without the light to hold it up. It was just wood and fabric. Then I saw the car. A tow truck was backing up to the garage. They hooked up the white luxury vehicle, Waverly's car. And then I saw Waverly. She ran out of the house. She was not wearing makeup. Her hair was messy. She was wearing sweatpants. "You cannot take it," she screamed at the driver. "It is mine. My father bought it for me." The driver did not even look at her. He just kept working the levers. The car lifted into the air. "Father, do something," Waverly yelled. My father walked out of the house. He looked 20 years older. His shoulders were slumped. He was wearing an old shirt. He looked defeated. He did not look at Waverly. He just watched the car go. "It is gone, Waverly," he said quietly. "But what am I supposed to drive?" she shrieked. "How am I supposed to go to brunch?" "Take the bus," he said. I almost laughed. The irony was perfect. The WS Lifestyle LLC was dissolved. Waverly's brand died overnight. When the news came out that she had been funding her lifestyle by stealing from her uncle, her social media followers turned on her. The comments were brutal. Thief. Fraud. Give back the money. She deleted her account 3 days later. Without the money, and without the social clout, Waverly was nobody. She had no degree. She dropped out. She had no work experience. I heard from Aunt Rosalind a week later. Waverly got a job, Rosalind told me over tea. "Really?" I asked. "Where?" "At the mall. At a clothing store. Folding shirts." "Folding shirts?" "Yes." She tried to apply for management, but she has no references, so she is working entry level. Minimum wage. I nodded. It was justice. She was finally working for the clothes she wore. My parents had to sell the estate. After paying back Uncle Dashiell, paying back the trust fund money, which went into a blocked account for me, and paying the legal fees, They had almost nothing left. They moved into a 2-bedroom condominium on the other side of town. It was a normal apartment. No garden, no gates, just a regular place for regular people. The social circle they loved so much evaporated. The friends who came to the birthday gathering, they disappeared. No one wanted to be associated with embezzlers. My mother, who used to be the queen of the social scene, was now an outcast. I saw her once at the grocery store. She was pushing her own cart. She was looking at prices. She put a box of expensive crackers back on the shelf and picked the generic brand. She saw me. I froze. I was standing in the produce aisle. She looked at me. Her eyes were sad. She looked small. I thought she would scream. I thought she would curse me. Instead, she just looked down at the floor. She turned her cart around and walked away. She was ashamed. For the first time in her life, she felt shame. I watched her go. I did not feel happy. I did not feel sad. I just felt nothing. The cord was cut. She was just a woman in a grocery store. She was not the monster under my bed anymore. The kingdom they had built on lies had collapsed, and all it took was one person telling the truth. It has been 2 months since the gathering. My life is quiet now. I still live in my small apartment. I like it here. It feels like mine. I got the retention bonus from work. I got the raise. And surprisingly, I got the money from the trust fund. The court seized my father's remaining assets to repay it. I have $500,000 in the bank. I have not bought a luxury vehicle. I have not bought designer clothes. I paid off my student loans. I paid off my credit card debt. And I put the rest away. It is my freedom fund. It means I never have to be dependent on anyone ever again. I sit at my desk on a Saturday morning. The sun is shining through the window. I open my laptop. The folder, The Truth, is still on my desktop. I open it. I look at the files one last time. The invoice, the bank logs, the email. It is all history now. It is a story about a different person. A person who was scared. A person who wanted to be loved by people who could not love her. I do not need these files anymore. I do not need the proof. I know who I am. I select the folder. I right-click, delete. A box pops up. Are you sure you want to delete the truth? I smile. Yes. The folder disappears. I look out the window. The city is waking up. I see people walking their dogs. I see couples holding hands. I am alone. But I am not lonely. I have dinner with Uncle Dashiell and Aunt Rosalind every Sunday. We cook together. We laugh. They do not judge me. They do not send me invoices. They just love me. I realize something important. Family is not about blood. Blood just makes you relatives. Love makes you family. My parents and Waverly, they were my relatives. But they were never my family. I pick up my phone. I have a text from Marcus, my supervisor. Marcus, great job on the security audit this week, Celine. The team is lucky to have you. I type back. Celine, thanks, Marcus. I love the work. And I do. I love my work. I love my life. I stand up and stretch. I feel light. The weight is gone. The heavy leather portfolio is gone. The expectations are gone. I walk to the mirror in the hallway. I look at myself. I see a woman who is strong. I see a woman who walked through fire and came out the other side without burning. I am not a victim anymore. I am not a daughter of thieves. I am Celine. And for the first time in 26 years, that is enough. I grab my keys, my own keys to my own simple car, and I walk out the door. The sun is warm on my face. I am free.